Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus. This fall, the Disney Bundle has all the action.
Holy smokes!
Watch live NFL and college football games on ESPN Plus. On Disney Plus, there's Loki Season 2.
War is on its way.
And Ahsoka.
Buckle up.
And on Hulu, you can watch The Boogeyman and Welcome to Wrexham.
Oh my God, the expectation.
All of these and more streaming this fall with the Disney Bundle. Blackouts and restrictions apply. 18 plus only. Access content from each service separately. Offer valid for eligible subscribers only. Terms apply.
Expressing your love can look many different ways. And with the right jewelry gift from Blue Nile, it can truly sparkle. Blue Nile's collection of classic diamond jewelry makes for the kind of gift that speaks volumes without saying a single word. Or switch things up with a sapphire piece sure to spark conversation. Either way, Blue Nile's Diamond Guarantee ensures you get the highest quality at the best price. Express yourself with Blue Nile, the original online jeweler, at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com.
I've been in dogs since 1991. We breed dogs that we want to train. I was out here in western Nebraska riding Harleys and training dogs. I don't sugarcoat anything, and if you don't like it, tough.
Hello, thank you for tuning in again today. This is episode 7 of the Flatlander Kennel Podcast with Chris Jobman. My name is Elliot Snyder. I'm here with Chris, and I'm going to turn it right over to him. He's going to tell you what we have in store for you tonight. He lined up our second really fantastic guest. So, Chris, how's it going today?
Hi, Elliot. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I don't know if you heard about the Georgie injury saga. I'll have to tell you about that sometime.
I heard about, and everybody, I apologize if the sound isn't very good. And I got home from the Grand and my winter trip and unpacked my stuff, and in my infinite wisdom, I have lost my microphone. I put it away, and I have no idea where. I've scoured the house. I can't find it. So I apologize if the sound isn't the greatest. But
yeah, we'll be all right.
No, we're clicking along. You know, we got home from the Grand and our winter trip, and we ran a couple of HRC tests up in this region, and I'm getting ready to hit Master this coming weekend, about every weekend for who knows how long. We're going to try to qualify probably 30 dogs or so for the Master Nationals, so we gotta get after it.
When is the Master Nationals?
It's at the end of October. The Grand is in October, then the end of October. But the Grand, we got home from the Grand. We got a couple dogs that need some points to get their Grand Hunter Retriever Champion title, but they've got their 2 passes. We've got Charlie, who's owned by Pamela Hassel. She is just turned 3. She got her 2nd pass. She needs a couple points. And then we got Blitz, who's owned by Bill Maggart, who's got 2 passes but needs a couple points. So that'll be our 52nd Grand Hunter Retriever Champion out of the kennel. And then we also passed Ozzy, who owned by Jason Thompson. And I'm drawing a blank. Flash passed for his 5th time. Georgie's daddy. And then Maisie, a real young dog, owned by Brandon Kirsch. She passed her first attempt. She's just a baby. She went through it on 2s, which she did a fantastic job. And I know I'm missing one. Anyway, we'll come up with it later. I know I'm missing one.
How many did you pass? Was it 6?
6. I passed 6.
Yeah. How did you feel about the whole? How did you feel about the performance?
It was. We were doing pretty dang well until the 4 series. We ran. I can't remember the series. It's called Avery. I think it was Avery Water. And I'm going to tell you, that 8-hour lunch, a whole entire flight, it got us bad, along with everybody else that ran it. But
what about it was so rough?
It was just, the 2 left marks were real tough. He had a long go bird, and then he had a real short left check down bird, and then we had a long right bird in the water. And we handled on every single mark. I lost one of my best dogs on the blind. We did, if it could happen, it happened. And then, no wind, no nothing. It was just a really, really hard series. I mean, it was well put together, very hard. Judged pretty tight. All those things, and it was just a tough. It was a tough deal. It's hard to explain, but it was. We went in there kicking butt and taking names, and it just crunched me. I think I went in there with 12 dogs. I think it came out with 6. So,
on that one series.
All in that series, yes.
Wow.
I know who the other one was. Charlie or Red Manning was the other one that passed, and he's a Flash son. So Georgie's brother Red passed.
Nice.
Yeah, so it was his second attempt at the Grand. He went through. He did a fabulous job. So we had Flash passed. We had Ozzy, we had Maisie, we had Red, Blitz, and Charlie. So we had 6 passes. And we were really happy with those 6 passes. But I really thought going into the 4th, I knew the 4th was tough. I really, really knew it. But I had some really good dogs in there on 2s, perfect scores, and I didn't even leave with those. So we went in with 50-some dogs in our flight, and we left with 22, something like that, out of the whole flight. So
wow, that was the day.
Yeah, it was brutal, but we got them all through, and we're happy to get our 5th pass on Flash. That was fun, and the first passes on Red, Maisie, and those dogs. But the boys have been home running HRC. They've ran Platte Valley HRC and Great Plains HRC. Andrew and Ryan have, and they've accumulated 65 passes in those 2 tests.
Fantastic.
With 16 titles.
That's great.
Either HR titles or HRCH titles. So, and like I said, we're getting ready to hit the master circuit too as well. So
yeah,
busy.
Well, that's fantastic. Sounds like you guys are really having a good spring into summer here.
Yeah, we're clicking along pretty good. We got some really nice young dogs coming up that we're excited about for sure. So tell me about Georgie's little injury. I know she cut her leg right before Great Plains. Did she do something different?
She did. She had stitches in for like 10 days, and I went and got her stitches pulled, and she was given full clearance to train. So I went right from the vet to train her, and I'm looking back, I'm thinking, well, was that stupid? I don't know. He said 100% full clearance and everything, and in that training session, I was circling around to heal her, and all of a sudden she yelped and pulled her leg up, and so I stopped everything. And ever since then, the area of that sore is so sensitive to the touch that you run your finger on it, and all of a sudden she's in excruciating pain. The vet thinks it's inflamed tendon is what he thinks. But quite honestly, I don't think he's very sure what it is. But it's been 8 days now, and it's a little less sore, and she doesn't hardly limp. But you can see she's not putting full pressure on that back foot, and so we're just resting her. I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I've never really had. Once they usually heal up from injury like that, they're usually pretty good to go. Like unless it's said like it's an inflamed tendon, ligament, something like that.
But the thing is, she had zero soreness in that area the entire time she had stitches. She had zero soreness when he pulled them out. I've got video of him pushing on it and everything, and she had a great training session, and then all of a sudden, I actually have it on video. I made a video of the whole training event. She steps and she yelps. It's like at one point in one moment, it just something just clicked.
Huh.
And so I don't know. I've had to scratch 3 days of hunt tests, and I don't mind doing that. I just don't want this to be some kind of weird lingering thing.
Yeah, she'll probably be all right, I'm sure. And if it keeps lingering, you may want to take her someplace, but a specialist. But another thing we got going on, I forgot to say, I wanted to mention, is we're going to have a seminar here. It's going to be a 2-day seminar on June 17th and 18th. It's a handling seminar, and basically what we're going to do is I'm going to do a couple setups a day, and our handler teams are already full. There's 15 handler teams from the season level up, and we're wanting as many observers as we possibly can. And we're just going to run setups, and I'm going to critique dogs. I'm going to run some setups, and we're going to do land and water, and we're going to do all kinds of stuff. And Boomtown HRC out of Wyoming is the one sponsoring it. And if you want to get in on it as an observer, we'd love to have you. It's on huntsecretary.com under the all events, and you can sign up there. Or I think it closes like June 2nd or something like that. And if after it closes, you can contact me or Jason, and we can get you into it too. But it should be really good. We've done it a few times here at the kennel. It's always been highly well received, and everybody always has a good time. So we're doing that too, amongst other things.
Yeah, everyone. So come on out to that. I'm going to be up there at the event too, trying to get some video and coaching and get the knowledge from the seminar, but also be running some video. So that'd be great for everyone.
Hopefully Georgie's healed up, and you can train with us a couple days before that seminar.
Yeah, if she's healed up, I'll be out there that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. If she's not, then I'll show up on Friday.
I gotcha. Cool. Yeah. Cool.
So, but that's 3 weeks out. So if she's not healed up by then, I'm going to be concerned.
Yeah, that's quite a ways, but she didn't hurt her knee or anything, did she?
No, It's right there on her foot, right below the little elbow of I don't know what it's called, that little joint,
the hock area or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's right below that is where it is. So
she's faking an injury. She doesn't want to train.
Yeah, I can tell you that's not true. She's depressed and pissed off is what she is.
I'll bet.
She looks at me when I get home because she wants to run. She doesn't care. So she gives me that look like, what are we doing?
Oh, yeah. I'm sure. But we have that's basically what's going on at the kennel. We're just busy going, running HRC and AKC and getting the dogs qualified and trying to get dogs entitled. But we have a really special guest with us tonight. Good friend of mine I've known for a long time. Everybody calls him like the Purina Man, and they know him as the Purina Man. But we're going to have Ray Voigt join us tonight. And everybody in the dog world that's been in the dog world for a while knows who Ray is and knows his accomplishments and knows what he's done in his life. And I'm not going to get into all that. I'm going to let him tell us all that. But the younger crowd, he's a Purina. He works for Purina right now. You'll see him at hunt tests and field trials, and he runs around. But the younger crowd may not know who Ray Voigt is, and you will soon learn from listening to this. This guy is a guru. He worked for Mike Lardy for a long time. He moved around a little bit, and he knows about a lot. So what we're going to do, we're going to have 2 back-to-back episodes here, and we are going to do. We're going to talk about marking, the first episode. How to build a marking dog and philosophies and theories on marking. In the next episode, we're going to do a question and answer from all of our listeners that have signed up and did questions on our Facebook page. And me and him are going to sit down. We're just going to like we did with me and Chris, and we're just going to talk, question and answer. And we're very, really excited to have him on there. So I'm gonna text him to jump on here real quick. So.
All right. So we will take a real quick break, and we will be right back on here with Ray Voigt.
After years of fine print contracts and getting ripped off by big wireless providers, if we've learned anything, it's that there's always a catch. So when I first heard that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless starting at just $15 a month, I thought, what's the catch? But after talking to them and using their service, it all made sense. There isn't one. Mint Mobile's secret sauce is that they're the first company to sell wireless service online only. They cut out the cost of retail stores and pass those sweet savings directly to you. For anyone who hates their phone bill, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. I was hesitant about having to get a new phone and a new phone number, but with Mint, you can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone and your same phone number along with all of your existing contacts. Mint Mobile gives you the best rate whether you're buying for one or for a family, and at Mint, families start at 2 lines. All plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and to get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/waypoint. That is mintmobile.com/waypoint. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/waypoint.
This episode is brought to you by Chevrolet. Now's your chance to support a team with real grit. The Chevy ZR2 family of off-road trucks. The first ever Silverado HD ZR2 joins the all-new Colorado ZR2 and the Silverado ZR2 for a commanding lineup of off-road ready trucks, equipped to take on anything this season throws their way. Visit Chevy.com to learn more.
Hi, everybody. Hey, Chris and Elliot are back. We finally got our good friend Ray Voigt on here, and a lot of you guys know him as the Purina man running around hunt tests and field trials, but a lot of the people may or may not know his story. It's really, really cool, and where he came from and who he worked for and how he became that person. But Ray, thanks for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Great. I'm surprised you're home tonight to do this.
Well, I've been on the road gone for about the last 12 days, and I'm home this week, so timing worked out perfectly. And then I head out again Tuesday, so you caught me on a good week.
This is exactly what you want to do, I'm sure. So everybody, tell us a little bit about yourself, Ray. Kind of how long have you been in dogs? Kind of how you started. How you got the foot in with Mike and those sort of things. We'd love to. There's a lot of people out there that know the story, but a lot of our younger listeners may not know all this, and they may have heard of Mike Lardy, but they didn't know the support staff and the people that helped him build who he was. So I'd really like to hear all that. I got my first dog when I was 14 years old. Found a dog in the Minneapolis paper, actually out of a field champion with Charlie and Yvonne Hayes' Gunstock breeding from Minnesota, and found this puppy in the paper. A family friend that I'd been throwing some bumpers for and going out and training to kind of see what it was all about. I couldn't drive, so he actually drove to Minneapolis and picked the puppy up for me. And he started showing me how to do stuff. He would say, here's how you teach obedience, here's how you do holds, here's how you do fetch, and in each step of the way, he would, when I'd kind of get it where I thought it was good, I'd call him and he'd come and look at it and say, okay, you can move on to the next step, and just kind of fell in love with it. Started running some hunt tests when I was 15. My mom used to, by that point I had a permit, but I couldn't get a hotel room and I couldn't drive by myself, so my mom owned her own business, so she would ride along with me and sit in the truck and read books during the hunt tests, and kind of went from there to field trials, and ended up going to one of Mike Lardy's seminars, and that was, I think, between my junior and senior year in high school, and just couldn't think of anything else I wanted to do, so I started bugging him about a job, and actually after I graduated, I went down south. I lived with Dave Smith and threw birds for a winter trip, had a puppy. We would train in the evenings and throw for the big throw for the truck all day and just try to watch and learn as much as I could. Then I worked for Rick Stosky for a little while and Andy Attar for a while. And then Mike had a full-time position open up, and I was there for about 15 years, and I've been with Purina for about 3 now. So yeah, I've been involved with dogs for a long time. Wow, that's quite the story. And everybody listening, that's how you get into the dog world. You help throw birds. You just help and do here, and then eventually you hope to catch on someplace. But that is how to do it right there. To be honest with you. Yeah,
I mean, I was fortunate. I was one of the first things that the family friend of ours said is, if you want to do this, try to get with the best people you can and learn from them. And I guess kind of took that to heart, being able to work with the guys I did, and especially Mike for all those years. And just I was fortunate. The lucky to have the caliber dogs we did, the clients we did, have the support of Mike, and being able to run around and do trials and run nationals, and I guess the rest is history.
That's crazy. That's a little bit different than it's happening nowadays, where you get a started title and you're a pro, get a Facebook page and a trailer. You did it right.
You need a hat too.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot you gotta have a hat. I forgot to have a hat, Facebook page, Instagram, dog trailer. You're ready to roll. But I got to ask you a question. Of all the dogs that you've seen, whether you're at Rick's or Andy's or Mike's or any of those places, give me if in your opinion, the best one that you saw or been around day in and day out.
Yeah,
you were around. You saw a lot of the legends, and now they're in second and third generations of most guys' pedigree. So I'd love to hear that.
That's a really tough question, and it's one that I get asked a lot. And you think I would have a stock answer by now, but there's some of them that were better at certain things than others. Just overall, NFC Mickey. Windy City's Mighty Mouse, he was hard to beat. He just didn't have a hole in anything. He was cooperative. He could mark. He would get in the water. He'd do anything you asked him to. A dog that's in the Hall of Fame, Great Buns of Fire, Jerry Lee. She was pretty spectacular. Same thing. She could do anything. Roxy McBunn. It's easy to name all the national champions, but those dogs they were great for a reason. And Grady, a lot of people have Grady in their pedigree, and he was derailed a lot by some injuries, but just pure heart and desire, and it's hard to beat. It'd be hard to put anybody above him for that.
Yeah, talk about Grady. Was he a softer, more sensitive dog, or was he more of a hard charging, or was he a thinker? Because I've trained a lot of Grady puppies, not so much anymore now, because now it's he's in the second, third generation. But back in the day, we trained a lot of Grady puppies, and one thing they all could do is they all could mark, but they're all just kind of a little bit sensitive on the sensitive side. I did see one male who wasn't like that, but was he a little bit like that, or where do you think that came from?
He was a little bit like that. Sensitive, I think sensitive and soft are two different things. I agree with you. I think sensitive, he didn't take a lot of correction to change his behavior. He wanted not to get in trouble more than anything. But so I'd say he's a little sensitive. He ran on probably only on a level 3 on the Garmin collars, but he was also, when you say hard chart, he ran like he would go through a brick wall if he thought the bird was on the other side of it. So that little bit of sensitivity didn't in any way, shape, or form slow him down or make him where you'd look at him and think, oh, maybe he's overthinking something, or he's a little nervous, or he was balls to the wall on everything. He'd kick dirt in your face on a water bottle.
Yeah, and that's how all of our Grady dogs that we've trained, they all loved to do it, and they ran hard, and they loved it. But you had to, you couldn't be one of them guys that just pushed the button and then thought about what you did later. You had to really kind of think about that, because you may pay for it down the road. I used to own a dog named Tweety. It was one of the best ones I ever touched, and she was a Grand Retriever champion, MNHQA dog, and she was Gizmo's littermate sister. And it was kind of cool. Gizmo, after he won the National Open, was getting trucked back across the country by Edgar, and Edgar had to stop here to get a puppy from us and keep going. But he had Gizmo with him, and so at that time we put Gizmo and Tweety, brother and sister, in our kennel and took pictures with him, and it was hilarious. Gizmo was on the food table. He's jumping on the Ranger. He was all over the place. And Tweety's like, what the hell is wrong with it? They were complete opposites. But, boy, that was That was a Grady Keno Cali litter, and that was a spectacular breeding.
Oh yeah, Gizmo wasn't afraid of much either. He was kind of a, he was a take the bird and let me go kind of dog, and man, he could mark. And I remember that trip. We had a dog on our way back to Georgia, and that's with Edgar. That same national, we had a dog named Turbo. And I actually finished 3 nationals in a row with him during that stretch when Gizmo won.
Ooh. Well, he had some good dogs hauling him back. That's stuff that people don't get to hear about a lot because the last thing we want to do a lot of times when we go out and we want to talk dogs and stuff. But now I have you on the air. I'm going to pick your brain and you can't go nowhere.
I'm here.
But, okay, let's do this. What I'd like to talk about tonight is we're going to do a couple different installments with Ray. We're going to talk about marking in this first episode. The second episode, we're going to answer a bunch of questions that came up on our Facebook page. But let's talk marking, how to build a marking dog, the importance of marking, everything about marking within about the next 45 minutes or so. But what do you think? Do you think a true, really, really good marking dog, do you think that's born or built?
Well, I think you can have both. I do think that some dogs just are born with a innate ability to find birds better than others. They get to them easier, they get to them quicker, they find them once they get there. I mean, I think that is a pure marking. I think is a born talent, but I think you can build a really good dog that's gonna that can mark. Hard to say just as well, but it would be. They would be just as competitive, and week in and week out get you a lot of points and a lot of passes and all that stuff. So I mean, I do think part of becoming a good marking dog is experience, and part of experience is learning what you can do and what you can't do.
Yeah. I like the dogs that see, and in my career, and I know what my answer is, but if you were to pick, you have an area marker, and then you have the pinpoint marker. I prefer if you gave me the choice, I've said it for years and years and years, is give me a dog that is a really, really good area marker all day long as opposed to the pinpoint marker. Because what I found, and you may have something a little bit different because we're in the hunt test world, you're in the field trial world, but our pinpoint markers a lot of times never really hunted very well because they were so arrogant or cocky or talented. They would go in, that bird is 3 feet right of that bush, and they went in there and it wasn't there, and they'd be like, oh boy, and they kind of would lose a little bit of confidence. But I like the area marker because if you got a really good area marker and they understand how to get in the area and not leave the area, you can't hide a bird from them. What do you think about that?
I don't disagree with that. I have a dog right now that I'm just kind of messing with for a month that kind of the same, just doesn't know how to hunt. Like she drills a lot of marks, and when she doesn't, she just doesn't know how to find them. And so I'm doing a lot of work with trying to get her to slow down and hunt and look for birds and stick them out. But yeah, I mean, that pinpoint marker might win you an extra trial here and there, but the one that's going to get under the arc, is going to acknowledge where the gun stood, or find that holding blind on the really difficult deal and know how to hunt off of that blind or off of that gunner to get that bird, they're going to get you through more tests for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that. So with that being said, you just said under the arc. That's a perfect segue into the ever-going argument that I hear about all the time, and it just nauseates me. So you have a couple different type of marking dogs. You have the dogs that mark inside out, and you have the dogs that mark outside in. So give me your opinion. I know what mine is, and mine's the exact same as yours. Give me your opinion and your insight on the outside in, the inside out. Should you make them outside in, or should you just let them go and do their thing as long as they're on the right side of the gun? Yada yada yada. So what do you
Chris,
think about
before
that
he answers that, can you give a little explanation for us amateurs what you mean by inside out versus outside in? Can you give a quick description?
Yeah. Okay. So let's just say a bird is, whether it's a hunt test mark or field trial mark, marks are marks, and it's thrown right to left. So an outside-in marking dog will go, if the bird's at 12 o'clock and you're leaving at 6, so the bird's at 12 o'clock, that dog is going to go to like 11 o'clock. So it was thrown from 2 o'clock to 12 o'clock. You're at 6 o'clock. That dog is going to go to 11 o'clock and mark it from the outside to the inside. If the inside-outside dog, the dog realizes the gun's at 2 o'clock, so it's going to probably run at like 1 o'clock and keep that relationship between the bird and the gun and find that bird. And there's this ever-going argument out there that you should make your dogs inside markers because they'll find more birds because they're more, quote-unquote, true to the bird and all that. I personally, I don't care. I don't make out. I think with especially some of the younger dogs that we have, if you try to make them outside-inside markers, you're stopping their momentum, you're hurting their confidence, and I don't like it, and I won't do it. I don't care if the dog goes outside to inside, or if I don't care if the dog is between the bird and the gun, as long as it finds the bird. And the people that are trying to make these dogs outside-inside markers, I think, are really hurting their confidence and their want to on these sort of things. Ray, what do you think on all that? Because this is an argument you hear all the time. I mean, everywhere you go.
Yes, I agree with you. I don't hear it quite as much anymore, but I used to hear it all the time. People would say, my dog has a problem, it runs at the gun. So does he end up in the right place? Yes. Then you don't have a problem.
Correct.
I wish I had that problem with all my dogs. If I have a dog, I'm not going to do something to discourage a dog from running outside in. You know, if they naturally are strong at the bird, run at the bird, or run just outside the bird, I'm not going to try to do something to change their natural, what I would say their natural tendency would be. But I would prefer the dog that runs inside out, because to me, when things start getting tighter, that dog, you have a better idea of where that dog's going. And I think that's how they can sort out where they've been and what bird they're going for. You know, those dogs that run right at the bird or just outside the bird, you know, imagine you have 2 pinch marks and they miss that short one by a couple feet outside. Which bird are they going for? And then
that's right. You know, they get lost. You know,
those dogs that identify the gun, and I tend to try when I'm running a trial or a test, and actually I've been running my own dog, and she's 5 for 5 in master test right now.
Of course she is, Ray Voigt.
But so when she comes back in, or even if she comes in and looks right out at the bird, or when I had field champions that came in and they'd stare at that bird, especially if it was a critical bird with something else deep of it, I'm going to pull them in and I'm going to identify where that gun stood or where that station was. And then I'm okay. I'll push back out to the bird, but I want to make sure they understand which station or, you know, which bird we're going for when I'm lining up for it. I think if you just point them out into space right at that bird, you run the risk of missing it a couple feet outside. And most of the time, unless there's a crosswind that way, there's no information for the dog that's going to help them break down and look for the bird. You get under the arc, you have foot scent, you got the gunner's scent, you got the gunner that's walked back and forth to pick up birds, you have other dogs that have been under the arc. And, you know, part of that marking is also those dogs understanding how to use that environment and use those little signals to help them. So when they go outside that bird and there's no information out there for them, they can miss it and be gone in a blink of an eye.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. That's so you actually, well, let's say you're throwing a mark, hunt, test, field trial, it don't matter, and your dog is looking out kind of where the bird was at, the general vicinity, maybe a little bit too far right, whatever. You pull that dog so it sees the gun, as long as it's not like a completely retired hidden gun. But you look and you identify the gun with the dog, maybe pull it a little bit more. If it's a left to right mark, you identify the gun, then you pull it back out to kind of where it was looking, like, yep, that's it right there. Is that what you're kind of telling me to do?
I'd like to get some acknowledgement of where that gun station was. So now, again, I hate to talk them out of a bird if they're really, really positive, but if there's any chance that they're looking outside of it, I'm going to now I have everything. My dogs are mostly two-sided, so when for me, it's usually pulling them in to where the gun stood, and then I can step back out to push them back out again. But whether you're one-sided or two-sided, maybe you got to step up a little bit or pull them a little bit, but it's getting that acknowledgement of where that station was, whether it's retired or the gun's out. Most of the time, especially on a tough key bird, I want to make sure, or tight marks, I want to make sure they understand which bird we're going for.
Yeah, that's good stuff right there for sure. But yeah, we hear that argument all the time, and I know some people that have tried to, these young dogs, they try to make them outside inside markers by kicking them off and calling them back or stopping them and handling them out and trying to do all those things. And I think that really hurts the want to of these dogs, and I think it really hurts their momentum because in their mind they're never doing anything right. And I don't think
like I said, I think in their mind a lot of times that how they naturally mark is how they make sense out of what they're doing in their head. So if we're starting to try to change that, it's just, it's like trying to change your hunt pattern. I mean, you can open up a whole box of worms or box of skeletons before you're going to do a lot of good because I don't think they understand what it is you're trying to change.
I agree with you 110% on that whole deal. So let's talk about a little bit about, let's just say you've got a puppy right now. And I've noticed this with some of the dogs that we've started as babies and back in the day when I used to run qualls and SRSs and that sort of thing. And I would start some of these young dogs as babies. I did nothing but white coat marks with them for, a year or 2 years even. And I noticed, a lot of people are wanting to get really long, really fast because they like to watch their dog run. Do you think starting a young dog off like a really long white coat mark with a hand, person throwing for you, and do you think if you start them, let me see if I can explain this right. If the mark is too long, they just run at the gun, and then they push off the gun, whether the gunner steps out to push them out, or they're running at the gun and they go find the bird. Do you think if you get too long, too fast at a young age, you're almost essentially teaching the dog to run straight at that gun instead of the, true to the bird? If you were to do shorter marks and teach them to stay away from that gun.
1,000%. I mean, I think we do. Yeah. Now, a lot of dogs have their natural way of marking, but we encourage them or teach them to run at the gun by exactly what you're saying. Those puppies, their eyes aren't developed yet. We're throwing, or, you got a tree line, you're throwing something that they don't see as well. They learn to be successful by running out to that gun, to the feet of the gun, and he either, like you said, they might step them out, or maybe they hunt around a little bit and then they find it. But they're learning how to be successful at finding the mark by running to the gunner. So, I mean, we're teaching them that right away. With puppies, I like to do shorter marks with longer, make sure real visible bumpers, white bumpers, and I do pretty long throws, and just to try to encourage them to run at that fall and use their eyes and not run to the gun. I mean,
yeah, exactly. So are you doing that? You want them to see the bumper laying on the ground? Is that like you're 50, 60 yards, or are you closer? Are you like in a football field that somebody could use, or what kind of terrain and cover?
To start with, I'm fine with them seeing it. Actually, when I start with the little puppies, 8, 9 weeks old, we're not talking, they're 20 yards, 10 yards, 20 yards, and I'll use paint rollers so they sit up on the grass nice so they can see them. And then as they're starting to do that routinely, where they're just running right out to the paint roller, so you can start to make it a little bit longer, and then graduate to bumpers. And I kind of use the cover when they can't see it, just based on what they're doing. If I'm having trouble when it's fairly visible and fairly short, I'm not going to make it more difficult. So if I'm getting a puppy that's running right out there and scooping up those paint rollers or those bumpers, then I'm going to start to make it so they don't see it until maybe they get out there or there's cover on the way. I mean, those little puppies, it doesn't take much cover for them not to be able to see something laying on the ground. So, and the other thing I'll do when I start to introduce covers, I'll shorten back up again, because I want that little puppy to be positive. It just saw something fall right there, and go out there and be confident enough to try to look for it. The further away you are, and then you throw it in cover, and they run out there, and they're not used to cover, and then they're going to stop, and they're going to look at the gunner, and they're going to look for help. And I want them to start from a young age of running out there and trying to develop. I know this thing landed right here, and I'm going to find it.
And when you do that, if you see your young puppy breaking down early, or if it's starting to run, everybody does it. I've done. Everybody does it. You like to want to go. You want to get as far back as possible, as quickly as you possibly can. If you start seeing that puppy break down short or start pulling to you, because you don't really want us to go, hey, because if it breaks down short, right, because it's going to pull over to you, which in turn it's using you as a crutch to find the bird. So because you've gone a little bit too far, too fast, would you fire drill that puppy out there to keep him away from that gun when they're young like that?
Yes, if I'm when I start to try to get a little further, I'm going to do a fire drill. And the one thing I like to do with the fire drills is I want to throw that second bumper or bird before they break down. So I want to keep them driving, and I don't like to have the gunner yell. So if you throw that bumper or that bird before they break down, I want them to just see that bumper bird fall out of the air right on top of where that other one is, not to draw the attention back to the gunner by yelling. Now, if they're hunting, and sometimes you got to do what you got to do to get their attention so they can see it. But if I think, I want to do a fire drill on this one, I'm almost going to predetermine it and throw a couple of them or throw a second one as they're en route before they break down, to keep them driving and to keep their attention out where the bird lands as opposed to the gunner.
Yeah, that's great stuff there. And for people that don't understand or know what fire drill is, it's when you send a dog. It can be a puppy or a big dog, doesn't really matter. And you kick you say you're throwing the bird right to left, and you kick your dog off, and you're trying to extend the marking area. You're trying to get the dog to run longer, drive through maybe old falls, scent cones, cover, terrain, and when that dog is en route, like Ray said, is before it breaks down, you throw another bird or bumper where your previous one at, and you just keep them going. You just keep them going, and they have something to run to, and then you can back up and maybe repeat that mark without fire drilling to keep them out there. But that's a good way to do that, what we're talking about. But I got one for you that I heard on a podcast, a different podcast, and this was really, really interesting to me, and I don't know. I want to get your opinion on this thing. I was listening to another podcast, and there's another very, very successful field trial trainer from Canada on it. Very successful, won a couple nationals, the whole deal. And he likes to start his young dogs. So you have a little bit of a right to left wind. Let's just say he likes to throw all of his birds into the wind. And what he says that does is, let's just say that dog is between the gunner and the bird. So when that dog gets to the gun, it smells that bird on the outside, and its first move is to hunt away from the gun to find the bird. Because I know a lot of people, I've seen it happen a bazillion times, where sometimes these dogs' first move is to hunt towards the gun, and then the next thing you know, you're on the wrong side of the gun. He likes to throw it into the wind, and if it's true to the bird, great. If not, if it's between the gun and the bird, that dog's first move is to hunt away from the gun because that's where it smells the bird. So he doesn't throw them with the wind to keep them away. He doesn't throw them with the wind to keep them away from the gun. He throws them into the wind to teach them to their first move is away from the gun to hunt.
I mean, I like the idea behind it. I don't know that them smelling. I'm just trying to think this through as I'm talking.
I've been thinking about this I cannot wait to get you on here. I've been thinking about this for 3 months.
I don't know that they're learning to hunt if they smell it and run over to it. Whether they're outside of a bird thrown with the wind or inside. I mean, I guess I would say I probably tend to throw more birds into the wind than with it. So I mean, but I don't think that I did it intentionally, thinking that it would teach them to hunt away from the gun. I think I did it as kind of starting at a young age to learn how to kind of fight factors and using that gunner as a barrier to, they got to fight the wind to stay in front of the gun to get the bird. I just don't. I mean, I think the theory of wanting them to turn away from the gun, I like that. I guess off the top of my head, I don't know that them just running out there and smelling it would, if that would correlate to always turning away from the gun when it becomes downwind and they don't smell it.
Yeah, I don't either. That's just it was a really, really interesting conversation, and he had a lot of really good valid points. And whom I get to argue with this guy, but it was a really good conversation, and I can see his point. But I'm with you. I don't know if it actually teaches them to hunt away from the gun, but I do understand how to fight the factor, stay between the gun and the bird, that sort of thing.
I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I do think it. I mean, certainly, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think, to me, getting those puppies, especially when you start to have a little bit of cover and having it downwind where they really have to hunt. I mean, to me, in my experience, that's been the best thing to really teach them how to hunt a bird, is having it downwind and making them go in and dig it out, or having to hunt and be successful versus smelling it as they approach it.
Yeah. And let's talk about and I know there's a lot of people that don't have help, but let's talk about building a marking dog as far as a young dog to a big dog. There's a lot of different theories out there, and I'm sure yours and I are probably about the same. But I know a lot of, and it's a lot of it that some of the HRC people are more prone to it than the AKC people. But a lot of the HRC people I see when I try to help them with their young dogs, they try to keep their wingers hidden. They got holding blinds up. They try to do everything in their power to keep that gun completely hidden from the dog. So what do you think about when you're building your baby young dog and Elliot's got Georgie coming up and he's training with his HRC club and he says, hey, I want you to stand out and throw me this bird because I want her to look out there and see where she's going instead of hiding everything from her. What do you think is, I think it's detrimental to a baby dog to try to hide everything, especially, I mean, just because you're running HRC and that's what they do, I don't think that's a great way to develop a young marking dog by no means.
Yeah, I feel pretty strongly. Now, I don't have the experience making grand champions and as many master hunters and all that, but I feel pretty strongly that if that was my goal, I would teach them how to mark with gunners, visible gunners, white jackets, and teach them the concepts, because I think having the gun as a target is a valuable way for them to learn and gain experience and have a little bit of a barrier or be able to help if the dog overruns it. You're starting to handle and then the dog misses the bird where you can handle or where you can help them, And I think it's a very valuable tool to have a gunner out in the field and have visible gunners out in the field. And I would want to I would want to develop all those marking concepts and then start to start to hide them after the fact. I think it's easier to. I think it's much easier to take the guns away after they know after they learn that stuff than it is to try to put them in after the fact.
This episode is brought to you by Dave, a banking app that's leveling the financial playing field. Because when you download Dave, you could get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less. No credit check, no late fees. It's part of Dave's Extra Cash account. Advance the money you need with no interest and then settle up later. Download Dave today at dave.com/Spotify. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Eligibility criteria and instant transfer fees apply. Banking services provided by Evolve, member FDIC.
ABC Friday.
It just takes one great idea to change your life.
Shark Tank returns for its 15th season.
I didn't know I was going to cry right now.
With new guest sharks, Jason Blum of Blumhouse, Michael Rubin of Fanatics, and Candace Nelson of Sprinkles Cupcakes.
I'm going to make you an offer.
On a scale of 1 to 10.
I've never seen anything like this on Shark Tank.
This season is a 15.
I totally believe in you.
Shark Tank premieres Friday on ABC and stream on Hulu.
Yeah, I've even been to some of the club training days. This has been a long time ago, but I went and helped a few times, and those club training days, and 9 times out of 10, it's HRC things. And I'm not bagging on HRC. I'm just trying to help the audience understand this. But they'll have 10 or 15 people at the line watching and trying to help. And they'll have 4 wingers in the field completely hidden with nobody at the winger. So I always ask them, I said, well, why don't we have somebody out there to hand throw? And nope, they're going to see that at a test. They're coming out of wingers. That's how we're going to do it. And I think that way of thinking is really, really detrimental, especially if you want something more than a season in an HRCH. I think if you want to play the Grand or the National or QAA or any of those sort of things, I think you're really, really hurting those dogs by having that closed mindset that, hey, we're going to run, our hunt tests are going to be with hidden wingers, so we're going to teach.
Yeah, I think there's a time to prep for what you're about to see, for sure. So, there comes a time when they have to be exposed to that and have to learn how to deal with it. But if I'm training and I'm teaching, I personally I believe it's much easier to get the point across that you need to bank or what you're trying to do in training with a gunner out there. And that's what I did with my dog kind of coming up.
Yeah.
She was trained 100% white coats until, and she had retired guns and all that sort of stuff, but 100% white coats until about 2 weeks before the first hunt test. And then I hit everything. We hit everything and blew duck calls and did all that stuff to make sure we had the excitement level that you're going to have in the test, and just get her prepared to picking out holding blinds and some of that sort of stuff. But it certainly has it's been an easy transition going from training for qualifying. In fact, in between the first and second hunt test, she got a gem in a qualifying, and then ran a hunt test another week later. So, I think it's I think when they learn it that way, it's an easy transition.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you said she was nothing but white coats for her whole entire life till 2 weeks for her first master test. That tells you something right there about the importance of guns and teaching the gun relationships and marking concepts and that sort of thing.
If I could ask just a quick question. I'm relatively new to all this, so still some of the terms are I'm not fully aware of, so I'm sure some of our listeners, amateur listeners, are in the same place I'm at. If you could just define holding blind versus gun versus retired gun and white coat.
Well, I'll do the holding blind is just it's what you see at a hunt test every day. You stand in the holding blind before the judge calls you to the line, and we do it in training too. We use those holding blinds to hide our gunners and hide our wingers and that sort of thing. It's just kind of a 3 or 4 pole, piece of fabric with stakes in it and just stakes out in the field, and that's a holding blind. And you use it to come to the line and use it out.
So how's that different than a gun?
An exposed.
Okay, so you're using the same. That's what I thought. But then I thought that was the same thing, but it seemed like you're using them a little different. So a gun is the same thing as a holding blind. There's no distinction.
Yeah, a gun could be a person in the field behind a holding blind. It could be a freestanding person. A gun could be a holding blind with a winger behind it.
It's anywhere the bird is being thrown from. So what's a retired gun then?
Correct. That's when you have a person out there that throws the bird, and either that when we say retired, that person goes and hides. It used to be back in the day, you used to be able to hide quite a bit away from the gun where you were throwing it from into a layout blind. They've gotten away from that. But that person will go, so a lot of times they'll do that. That person will throw the bird, and then you'll have, maybe you do a double or a triple, and then you turn and you're sent for the go bird. Well, a lot of times that person retires when that dog is en route to a different mark, and then when it comes back, it's no longer there.
Sorry to interrupt. I just want to make sure that our full audience is keeping up with everything, and I'm sure there's people like me that are still trying to learn all the terms a little bit.
Yeah, and Ray knows those days when they retired into layout blind.
A few people got stepped on, and then that kind of ended that. But yeah, Elliot, for the context of this conversation, it's mostly visible gun means a gunner with a white coat. A hidden gun means a gunner or a device, a winger behind a holding blind that the dog doesn't have a visible target to mark off of. And a retired gun would be when the gun is visible, throws the mark, and then goes and hides after the fact. So when the dog comes back and you're trying to get that bird, they're disappeared.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Elliot, do you have any? I could talk marking with Ray forever. Do you have any questions at all from an amateur standpoint?
I do. From my own perspective, there's times I've got two main questions. One's about the mentality of a dog, and the other is about problem solving. So I'm having an issue with Georgie overrunning marks, and I don't know what do you do if a dog is having issues with marks. What steps do you take for whether the dog's overrunning or maybe leaving the area altogether? Just how do you in your training fix those different types of problems? And the second question I would have is, you guys talk a lot about confidence and dogs' confidence. What do you do if you see a dog's confidence breaking down? Can their confidence go from one training session to another where they do poorly one day and it carries through? So how do you handle the actual technical stuff, and then how do you handle the mental aspects of the dog? Right. Well, break it down whichever one you.
I was kidding, and you sat around all day fucking that up. So no, and let's talk about this real quick, Ray, because I know you said something about your dog. You were teaching your young master dog now to stay in the area and dig those birds out, if I remember what you said on that deal. So let's talk about one of the first of 10 Elliot's bullet points. So let's talk about keeping the dog in that area on a mark and not blowing out. How would you teach that? As far I know what you're going to say. How would you teach that? To keep that dog in that area? So you mentioned something about
it's actually
that.
Another dog that I have right now just for a couple of weeks. But yeah, same. But either way, so it depends a little bit on why they're blowing through the short bird. So are they blowing through the short bird to run out to a longer gun? Are they just not concentrating? Are they uptight about it and they just they have their ears back a little bit and they're not comfortable breaking down? So all three of those would be reasons why they would be overrunning short birds. So they'd all have probably a little bit different recipe on how I would try to address it. So if they're running, but in general, I would say I would go to shorter marks in a little bit more cover, and go to more singles versus multiple marks, and trying to throw birds in hard to find places. So when they get to the area, they really have to look for it, and they have to put on a hunt to be successful. Now, if the dog is, I think that would work if the dog is uptight or if the dog is just like not concentrating. If the dog is just trying to take off for another bird, then it's a little bit of a discipline deal to me versus just overrunning short birds.
Yeah.
What if they're overriding the longer birds?
Excuse me?
So
What if it's not a short bird? What if it's like 100 to 150 yard mark and they're consistently overrunning those by, let's say, 50 yards?
Is there something else?
Where they're just blowing
Is there something
through?
else behind it, or are they just running out in the
No.
open field?
Yeah, just
excited,
cruising right through it.
And
Right.
And Elliot, is your terrain just a flat, open, featureless field with nothing in the back that you can run forever? No. Okay.
I mean, so
are you training by yourself, or are you training with wingers or gunners, throwers?
You could do everything. I would shorten it up a little bit more. I mean, 150 yards to isn't terribly far. But you could go shorter. I mean, you could shorten it up even more. I've done stuff with use a small orange bumper and do walking singles, 40, 50 yards away and throw into cover and just trying to get them more positive about where that mark lands and have them going and looking for it. And to me, the greater the distance, the less likely you are of them to, especially if you're having some trouble, that they're going to go in there, head down, tail up. I know that bird is right here. So that's where I'm going to shorten up the distance and just try to make it throw stuff in heavier cover, throw it in if you have safe ditches you can use to throw a bird in a ditch. We use a drill called the Ontario 10-step, which is another discussion, but just things basically to try to elicit a hunt out of that dog and have them comfortable breaking down and looking for that bird or that bumper, and having success when they do it is the key.
Does confidence play a lot into this?
A
lot into this? Are these a hand-in-hand issue where if they get in, they have a couple failures and that gets to them mentally, and it takes a while for them to shake that off?
I think it depends on the dog a lot. I mean, if that dog's running out there ears up and just running because it's having fun and not concentrating, I don't think that's really a confidence issue. If that dog gets really bothered when it doesn't find the bird, and all of a sudden you can start to see it acting more nervous, it's running with its tail down or its ears back a little bit, then that could be a confidence deal. And then I want to do more things that they have success and throw some marks that they can find. If they're just running out there having fun saying "we," then I want to try to make them slow down and try to dig the bird out.
Makes sense.
What I want to hear you say "wee."
You do a pretty good job.
So what about on Elliot's deal there? That I know Georgie. She's a fireball. She's Flash's daughter. What about salting the area on something like that? Bigger hunt area, and just let her know that, hey, you need to come in here and maybe salt the area.
That is something that was done with this little girl that I got here before she was here. I mean, it's one of those things. It's a little bit, in my mind, it's a little bit like we were just talking about throwing the bird into the wind so they smell it. I mean, you could throw your shorebirds into the wind and you'd say, and they smell them, and you say, oh, look, she's not overrunning her marks anymore. Well, no, she's just smelling the bird. So if just getting to the area gets you the bird immediately, I guess you're trying to start to get the habit of them when they get there, they start to look for it because they're having success and they're finding it. I still feel to some degree that they have to hunt and find it on their own to start to learn to be successful at digging those hard to find birds out.
Yeah, that's a really.
But I have no problem with doing that with salting the area for a little while to see if it makes a difference. Don't get me. I'm not saying I wouldn't do it. I'm just at some point she's going to have to dig out the birds on her own.
Yeah. And Elliot, I know where you live. Are you throwing this in? It's pretty humid where you live. What's the cover like? You're throwing these bumpers in? Because I'm going to tell you, it's if you were to take out my big old master crew and grand crew, and you throw bumpers in thicker cover for my 30 dogs that are that level, it's going to be a disaster all day.
Probably about shin deep, and I will say it's a pretty small sample size, and she has overrun these and come back and found them, and without my assistance. So it's not like she's completely failing. It's just I see a little bit of a pattern of this developing where she's overrunning these marks. But it's like I said, it's not that she's failing on them. She's going about 50 yards too far on a couple of them, works back to it, and does find it.
Well, at least she comes back. It doesn't just keep going.
Well, and the reason I tied the two together, she had a day where there was a double, and the second one on the double, about 150 yards, she got so lost, like she never has on a mark before, that she was just clueless to. I had to finally help her. The next day we went and ran marks. She acted like I've never seen her act before. She ran to the fall, and then she just was like running crazy, like she had no idea where it was. And so then I tried to get confidence back in her. But it's that day that she got completely lost on a mark. It seemed to affect her from that time forward for some reason, because she had never kind of displayed some of the overrunning that I see her doing. That's why I wondered if
it wasn't like an intelligent hunt. It was more of a panicky, just run around.
Yes, and the next time we went out, that's how she did it on about 3 marks in a row. It's like, oh, I don't know where it is. I'm panicking. And she just started running off.
So
and I'm like, what? Like I've never seen her do it.
Is she a pretty talent? Like she doesn't have a lot of trouble. She finds birds pretty regularly, pretty easily.
Yeah. Yes. She's never had any problems until this.
I would say, and I think this is true of an advanced dog. You can tell me what you think, Chris. Whether it's a grand dog or a master national dog, or we used to see it a lot with our field trial dogs. Those dogs have to learn to work through things when they're in a little bit of a position of uncertainty. If we keep things so routine for them that they never have any conflict, or they never have any, like you're talking about, they never get lost, then when they do, it's like the wheels come off because they've never been in that position before. And I'm not saying you go out and you set them up to make mistakes or to fail, but I'm saying that there's times when you have to push a little bit when they're doing well and put them in a little bit of a uncertainty once in a while, and not throw them under the bus by using a lot of pressure or correction when they do make a mistake, but helping them out and letting them kind of learn, like, hey, you can trust me. Everything's going to be all right. We can work through this, but you're not going to be 100% sure where every bird is your entire life.
Yeah, teach them to be a problem solver. And if they're not, because she's got a big motor, because it can blow up in a hurry.
Definitely.
Let's talk about check down birds. And check down birds are relative. A check down bird in a hunt test isn't as short as a check down bird in a field trial, but it's still a check down bird. Let's talk about teaching a dog and the philosophy on a dog and how to correct the dog. Let's just say you're running a double or a triple, it doesn't really even matter. And what a check down bird is, everybody, it's a real short bird. And short's relative. If you're in a field trial, you might have a 300-yard go bird, and your short check down bird's 100. And if you're at a hunt test, your short check down bird maybe 25 or 30 after you've picked up a 150, 200-yard bird. In training, let's talk about how to teach a dog and what a dog should be thinking and its characteristics coming into a short check down bird, and how to correct that. And I've seen a lot of people, they work on these short check down birds, so their dog goes out and gets a mark or two, and then comes back, and the first bird out was just a short check down bird. Now it's got to come in. It's gone 150, 200 yards, however far you went, and now you're coming down in, and your dog has got to win at your back, nothing really to help it, really well placed short check down bird. So the dog just went long, and now it's coming in to get this short check down bird. I've seen people that the dog blows through there, whether there's nothing behind her, and they'll just lose their mind and start lighting it up with the collar and screaming and yelling. And I personally think that's not the way to do it, or even stop the dog, because a dog that's got to be, to come in and get that short bird has got to be really comfortable and got to be confident and comfortable. And I don't like when my dogs miss those short check down birds. I've done this in the past. I blew a whistle and I'd get onto the collar a little bit and I'd call them in, and I'd get on the whistle and call them in, and then it would cause my dogs to pop. Even they would be nervous about going to that short check down bird, and they would blow through it and they would just pop. And I'm going to tell you, I did this years and years and years ago, and I learned my lesson the hard way. Now all I do is, if they go through the area of the check down bird, I do one of two things. I have the gunner help, go, hey, 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 and just pull the dog back. And then once it turns and moves back towards the bird, I just have them stop and let the dog find it. Or I blow the whistle, but I don't stop them with the whistle and break their momentum because I don't want them to pop after they went past it. I just go, tweet, 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 and they just turn around and I leave them alone. Ray, what do you think on all that?
First of all, I'd agree. I don't think pressure is the way to make them better at it, because the key with those check down, a lot of times we have with the check downs is there may be another longer bird as well, so they have to be disciplined enough to go for the bird you want, but then they have to be relaxed enough to look for it. So adding pressure to me does not help with any relaxation. So now if we're talking about a selection issue, meaning that there's another longer bird still on the ground and I'm trying to get them to go for the short bird, if they just blatantly disregard where I'm asking them to go and take off for the longer bird, I might stop and call them back. I'm typically not going to use pressure. I might have the gun stand back up or simplify a little bit. I'm okay with gun help. I tend to use more gun help when I feel like the dog's giving me effort. Okay, so if they go in there and they try to look for it, but maybe they're just not quite successful, then I'm going to be quicker to help that dog out because they're showing me they're trying. If they just go blow through, without even trying to look for it, I may call back and maybe rethrow, maybe have the gun stand up. I wouldn't just keep resending without doing something to simplify. Because I do feel like they learn better from doing it from your side versus from out in the field. But I certainly am not saying that I recall every time. The handling, I personally have not done the just blow the whistle and have them come in like you're talking about. I know several people that do. Danny Farmer does it. Chris Ledford does it. They blow the come in whistle. Those are two highly successful trainers. I just personally, I tend to stop them because I want to stabilize the response. So I just try to stop them, let them catch their breath, and then do the come in. And then if they won't come in on a come in whistle, then you can either try again or potentially treat it like a cast refusal for a refusal to come back. But in general, adding more pressure, especially if they're a little bit unsure, is going to certainly make it worse. And if I'm going to call back in that situation, I'm going to do something to simplify the test.
Yeah. It's always scared me to, like you said, to blow your whistle, like blow the stop whistle and break that momentum and call them in. That's always scared me because I screwed up a bazillion years ago and I caused some popping issues when that dog even knew it missed it and or even smelled it, knew it missed it, would pop and not even come in. So that's always scared me to blow that sit whistle to develop that popping problem. That's why I just blow that come in whistle and they just turn around and just come in and I let off on it and they kind of figure it out.
Yeah, I think part of what you're talking, you said when you're having that issue, you're also adding collar pressure. So that could okay.
Well, I did and I did not. I did them both different ways, and it's just, to me, when I would blow that sit whistle, even just stopping them would make them almost nervous, like they screwed up. But you're right. The collar pressure, I started with that, and that was that I was taught by somebody else, and it was a long 20 years ago, and that's not how. Adding pressure on a short check down bird for a dog to come in is not the way to do it. I can promise you guys that.
The other thing on top of that too, I would add to the whether you're calling back, helping, stopping, or just coming, everything. As a trainer, your job is also you have to monitor your success levels. And you're going to have to read your dog's body language, and are they starting to get a little bit uptight about it? Are they going in there looking for them aggressively, or are they lining through? All those things can dictate how you want to address it. And so if I have a dog that's acting like they could get a little uptight, I'm going to do more singles. I'm going to do things to have more success. I'm going to maybe leave the gun out versus having it hidden. I'm going to do things to make sure I manage my success levels so they're doing plenty of them right and not just having failure after failure after failure.
Yeah, I agree. Did we answer all your questions?
Yeah, I think you did. Yeah. I would like to hear a little more just about confidence level. You guys talk a lot about, I hear over time, talking about a dog's confidence. I would like to hear more about monitoring that and how much that goes into what you're doing with the dog on marks, and with how much you're monitoring their state of mind, I guess, even more than confidence.
I think, now let me talk real quick here, Ray, and I'll let you take over. I think a lot of amateur trainers put too much emphasis on the dog being confident all the time and successful all the time, because they don't want to drive home on a Sunday afternoon after training and go, oh my God, my dog's terrible, just because it had a rough training day. That's why it's called training. And I don't think a dog can always be successful. I don't think it always can be positive. I think they need to have failure, and then you need to put them in a rough spot, and then you need to show them how to get out of that rough spot, and then you need to show them how to be successful. Because if they are constantly successful, and Ray alluded to this earlier, they have zero problem solving because they've never had to solve a problem. So we've got to put these dogs, even more advanced dogs that they get, you got to put them in places where they're going to be unsuccessful, and then you've got to teach them how to be successful in those situations, so that when they do get into that situation, like Georgie can't find a mark, the wheels just don't fall off, and her brain doesn't explode, and she's like, you know what, I've seen this before. This is just how you do. This is how you fix it. And so then her confidence she doesn't lose her confidence quite as easy because she's been successful in tight spots. So I think you need to be unsuccessful and teach them how to be successful to make them be successful, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I think dogs learn from episodes of success and failure, for sure. And I think that, to me, goes all the way back to when we're in the yard, or when we're trying to shape any sort of behavior from basics through transition to advanced work, which that's a whole nother. We could talk a whole nother hour just on that sort of stuff. But I certainly think that they learn from both. And I think, to me, I didn't tend to use the word confidence as much, but I would say I monitor their success rates. I think the dog that's more successful, in turn, is going to be more confident, right? The dog that gets in trouble all day, every day, is going to be less confident, depending on their temperament, right? So temperament plays a factor in if I'm challenging or trying to have success. If I have a fire-breathing dragon that he doesn't care, I don't mind if he has a little less success. If I have a little more sensitive dog, a little more cautious, I'm going to try to get them to do more things right, and I'm going to do that through my test design and the order I shoot the bird. So every time I have 3 gunners out in the field, I'm not doing a triple. So we can do singles. We can do a single and a double, or a double and a single, and we can do things to mold the test or change the test to what we feel the appropriate challenge for that dog is. So there are plenty of times in training when we had 24 dogs and 16 of them are open dogs, and I might have 3 guns in the field, and we might run the test 3 or 4 different ways depending on how I felt that dog, what the appropriate challenge was, and what they had done the day before. We took notes on every dog, every setup, every day. So if something was starting to develop, I started to see Georgie's been struggling on her short birds here lately. I can go back and look at my notes, and I could see when it started, what test it was, were we challenging, maybe we weren't challenging enough. Maybe she needs to go through a period of time where we challenge her a little bit more to make her try to figure this out on her own. Maybe she's getting a little uptight, so we need to simplify for a period of time and get her, getting those birds on her own pretty good before we start to challenge again. So all that is dictated by, I think, the dog's temperament and what they've done on those sorts of tests leading up to that specific day of training.
What I hear you saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is you're really looking for a diversity of experience that it's really more of a mentally tough dog than it is a confident dog.
I guess to me it's balance. Like that dog has to they have to be mentally balanced. They have to, if you want them real relaxed and go in and look for a bird and be happy, they can do that. And if you need them to swim down to the end of the pond and they don't really remember it, they can do that. So I think all these things that we're talking about and how we manage success rates and the tests that we set up is all in the success and failure is all trying to get the grand scheme of things. I want a balanced dog. I want that dog that I can get the long bird or the short bird, and I can help them by my communication, and they're mentally, they're not worried about one or the other. They're free thinking. They can solve things on their own, and they're balanced and disciplined. And that's a hard balance. It takes years to get to that point.
Okay, Ray, let's do one more, and then we'll get you out of here for the next episode. This is always a discussion when we train our training groups, and I have people up here to train, and there's always that underlying thing of never handle on a mark, which I think is wrong, my personal opinion. So give me the scenario. When should you handle on a mark? When should you handle en route to a mark? And what makes you decide when to handle the dog, when not to handle the dog? So let's just do this first scenario where you're trying to teach a dog to fight the factor, and it's a crosswind mark, and your dog is prone to fading with the wind. Give me the sequence. I know you're going to say it varies per dog and blah, blah, blah. So give me the sequence where you maybe fire drill the dog to help the dog and not break its momentum. Give me the sequence where maybe you handle on line to fight the factor, and maybe some of the corrections of that. Let's do that one first.
Okay. So if I'm doing a longer mark with a crosswind, I'm going to fire drill when I have a dog that isn't handling. Right, when I have a young dog, I want to keep them from fading with the wind. I want them to kind of learn to stay out there in front of that gun. That's where the fire drill to me is going to come in. Once they can handle, I'm going to handle them for failing a factor, which kind of goes with the broader topic of when to handle and when to help. But on a long bird, I'm going to handle a dog that's failing a factor on a mark, and I'm going to handle when I read that they have made the commitment to do the wrong thing. So that long crosswind bird, maybe it's a 300-yard mark and 150 yards, I can see them fading behind that gun, and they're committed to going to the wrong side. I'm going to stop and I'm going to cast, and then if they take the cast, great. If I have a cast refusal, depending on the age and stage, it may be one more cast, or it may be a stop and then give a nick for a cast refusal, repeat the cast. Kind of the same. I kind of use that as my when I feel like they're not going to recover, when they can't recover, or when they've committed to making the mistake to fail the factor, is when I'm going to handle.
Yeah. So this is a really good topic, because the other day we had a training group here. We have a training group every week here called the Ladies of FLK, and there's a bunch of ladies from Colorado that come up. There's a group of them, and we have a ball. And we were training on some really, really technical water the other day, and it was really technical. And I was running blinds, and they were watching me run blinds, and I was helping them with their dogs. And I would see my dogs, there was multiple points they had to pass and stay off of, and that sort of thing. Get on, stay off. And when I was en route and I was running blind retrieves, we weren't running marks, we were running blinds. And when that dog, what I would do with my dogs is when they're en route to the blind, they had all these decisions to be made, right? So let's just say they would make a really, really good decision, and they'd go past the first point, and they'd be going at the second point, and the second I saw them commit to the land, I would blow the sit whistle. They would still be in the water, and I would have them back online around the factor and teach them to do that. And one of the ladies asked, she said, why don't you let them get up on the land and quote unquote burn them off the land and start again? And I said, well, I don't do that, because then if you need to have a dog that gets out, it will not get out. It's scared to death to make that, because it's already now they think the land is hot. So what I was telling them, I want my dogs to think the second they made that decision, I want to tell them their decision was wrong. I'm going to show you the right way around it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I don't like to...
Marks and blinds. Yes. It doesn't really matter.
Yes.
The second they make that decision, you teach them that's the wrong decision. You don't teach them that's the wrong spot to go.
Correct. I think, and that's the difference when we talk about building a dog that is kind of a free-thinking, a problem solver. If you just correct a dog for being somewhere repeatedly, or correct on the first whistle, I think you create dogs that are afraid of consequences. So you make the shoreline a hot spot. And that's where you can really see, if you want to use the term confidence, you can really see a dog lose their confidence or lose some of their desire, because they start becoming worried about what's about to happen instead of making the right decision. So I believe doing it the way you do, where you stop them and then you can correct for a cast refusal, and I don't think that's going to hurt attitude as much, because you've just showed them the way out and you've told them what not to do, and they still do it. That's a black and white scenario versus just letting a dog, say, swim for 50 yards and then crucified for hitting the shoreline. How does that dog know? What if you only wanted them 10 yards further? How is that dog going to know the difference?
Yeah, and that's what I was telling them. I'm like, I told them, because they've trained in a lot of other groups, that they let them get on the land and then, they burn them off the land. And I was trying to tell them, hey, I'm trying to teach a thinking dog. So in my mind, when they think that they've made that decision, that's their decision. And instead of getting up there and crucifying for it, I try to change their thought process so that they think their way through these things. Whether you're running marks or blinds, to me, it's the exact same correction in the philosophy we want to do.
Yeah, and it's about making them make the right decision and not being afraid of the consequence. And,
correct.
And I think that's how you do that. When they make the wrong choice, because you think about everything else that we do, when we allow that dog to continue on in their line, on the line they're on or the route that they're on, we're telling them they're doing the right thing, right? You throw a mark on land 400 yards away, and if they're going out there the whole time, you don't stop them, they're doing the right thing. Or same thing. So to me, if you're going to start letting them go places when that should be telling them they're doing the right thing, and then you stop them and get them in trouble, that's when you can really start to make them nervous or uptight and afraid of, like you said, afraid to get out of the water, or you lose that balance completely that we need, that these advanced dogs need, because sometimes they got to be willing to get in the water right away and swim. Sometimes they got to cut a little corner, and there's even times where they got to be willing to miss a little bit of water. And if every time those dogs are getting in trouble for just being somewhere, you're going to have an incredibly hard time achieving any sort of balance.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of times, a lot of people can't wait to get on tech water to do marks and blinds and that sort of thing. And if you're getting these dogs are in trouble for getting on every point or making every wrong decision, and they get overcorrected, the next thing you know, you have a dog that walks up to a tech pond and they just hang their head and they're like, nope, I'm done. They're defeated before they already get there because that tech pond makes them so nervous. Just the look of it makes them scared. And that's overcorrection on that situation. One more thing. Let's be done. When do you handle on a mark? When do you not handle on a mark?
So, I mean, we just kind of touched on it a little bit there, that scenario with the crosswind. I tend to handle when a dog is failing a factor. I don't like, in general, once the dogs are handling and they're through all that stuff, I don't like to have the guns bail them out if they're failing a factor. If something's neutral, like they just overrun a bird, or they go in and they look for it and they can't quite find it, it's downwind, they're not cheating or missing something to get there, I'll have the gun help. They gave me the effort. They're not doing anything wrong other than just not quite finding the bird. But if I have a piece of water, terrain, cover, wind, that the dog is obviously failing to go to the wrong area, I'm going to handle. And I think part of, this was about marking, but part of dogs learning how to mark is also learning how to fight factors. And I think you run blinds and you handle to teach dogs how to run straight and fight factors.
Yep. And you got what about that young, and I know our answers are going to be the same probably, but that young dog or that dog that's not quite as, I don't want to say confident, but just he kind of a weenie type dog, and you throw a nice good long mark out there, but it's not really looking for the mark, but it's kind of hugging the gun, it's kind of hunting around the gun. It kind of acts like it's hunting, but it's not hunting, and it's not really looking for the bird, but it's just kind of hanging around the gun. I know a lot of people that'll throw another bird out of a winger, or they'll have the gunner help to push that dog out, which I think is wrong because that's what it's asking. That's what it wants to do. What my correction was on this whole deal, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, if it does that and it's hanging around that gun and just kind of messing around, I'll stop the dog and call it out of there and call it back to me, maybe even halfway, and then I'll handle to push that dog back out. I'll handle to push that dog back out, and I'll handle into that bird to teach that dog to stay away from that gun. And then what I'll do after that is I will have that gun rethrow, and then I'll just toss a bird off to the side from my side. And so now I'll pick that bird up, and I'll come out, and I'll punch that dog out there to that bird again after I already explained to him, I don't want you around that gun, right? Mm-hmm. What do you think about doing something like that? I mean, because that's what they want to do. They want that gun to help them, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a. I agree that they want the crutch of that gun to help them. So, or the mistake they've made is being too close to the gun. So, having the gun,
and they're not giving you a ton of effort. They're not giving you a ton of effort like you were talking about. They're not giving you a ton of effort. They're just like, I'm just going to stay here until it helps me.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I mean, I think another same scenario, you get a real long flyer, and you see those dogs that won't hunt off with a gun, that hunt near the gun on a long flyer, and people's tendency is to help them. Well, I think the whole failure was hunting too close to the gun. And then when you have the gun stand up and help them, you're just reconfirming not to hunt away from the gun. So that's another situation where I would handle the dog versus helping them. I think a dog like you're talking about, that's a little, like you said, he's a little bit of a weenie. I mean, I think I don't like the just bailing them out with the gun help like you're talking about. But that's a dog that I'd probably pay attention on some success rates and try to maybe simplify. I don't like to reduce my standard, but I will reduce the level of difficulty, right? So meaning if I have a dog that's having some trouble and I throw a crosswind mark and they're fading with the wind, I'm not going to let them fade with the wind because they're having trouble. I'm going to not put that dog in the situation to fail. So I'm going to simplify my task so I don't have to handle. I might throw a downwind, but I'm not going to let a dog fail a factor to get a bird because they need more confidence, so to speak. If I put the factor in front of them, they're going to have to uphold my standard.
And then in order to keep your standard higher, you don't make the factor quite as difficult.
Correct.
So that dog can be more successful, but your standard's still real high. You just simplify your factor, and then you gradually move your difficulty of factor higher and higher and higher as you see the dog handling the situation.
That's
better.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
And, as far, I tend to not repeat a whole lot. I think dogs, like the dogs we had, they just weren't used to it. So I think a lot of times when we would repeat, they tended to repeat the failure. If they've been brought up in a system where they're used to it, like like you're talking about, like you handle the dog and then you repeated it. If they're used to that, then I think that's certainly a good sorry, I just dropped my phone. That's a good outcome to have if you can do that the second time and have them give you the proper response.
Yeah, and when I repeat things, unless it's like a cheating single or if it was really, really bad, when I repeat things, I like to add something to it. So if I have a dog that struggled on a mark, I may rethrow that mark, and then I may go and run a blind, come back and try to pick up that mark. Or I may throw that mark, throw a mark from my side, pick up that mark, run a blind, come back and try to get that mark. I try to add something to it instead of just running right back to it, unless it's a young dog, of course, or like a cheating type single. I like to add a little bit more difficulty to see if it's done anything.
Yeah, and that's where I think a dog coming up in the system where you do that from the get-go, they learn how to do that right from the get-go. That makes a lot of sense. I think if I took took my dog in just because she's not used to it, if I tried to do that, she'd probably repeat the failure. But if they're used to it, I certainly think that works. And the other thing I'll say, part of when I was spoiled, we were spoiled with all the grounds we had. So if we had trouble on a short bird, instead of repeating the short bird, we could just, probably move 100 yards and repeat the same concept. Not everybody has the grounds and means to just move a little bit and repeat the concept. And they have, one field and one pond. And that's probably, I think, also where teaching a dog to be able to repeat probably has some more merit there too, when you don't have the grounds to just go do the same thing in a different spot over and over and over again.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, Elliot, we could talk about marking until tomorrow morning. Let's, if you're good with it, let's call this one an episode. This would be great.
Let's go ahead and close this one out. Remember, guys, come over to Facebook. It's the Flatlander Kennels Podcast Facebook group. Next episode, we're going to have Ray back on here where we're going to do a Q&A. So we are releasing right now every other Wednesday. So make sure and check back in with us. This next episode is going to be a really, really good one. You guys have anything else?
I'm good. Ray?
You know what? I just want to say thank you again to you guys for having me on. And this is great. It's great discussion and some great stuff here. So I appreciate it. And feed ProPlan.
All right. Feed ProPlan. Okay. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll have Ray back on for the next episode. We're going to take a break. Thanks for listening. See you everybody at the line. Take that in.
Gotta strike this chord with the humble hearts. Wearing heavy chains and blue collar scars. Inevitably, they're gonna get their way. If it don't take that fight, take it to the grave.